I get discouraged for sure, and I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Convention of States, COS, Indiana Live. Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first broadcast for the new year, 2024. So welcome aboard, everyone. We've got a great show for you tonight and a lot of good things planned for you this year. So let me bring on my co-host very quickly, and that is Mr. Ken Kashuba. Hello, Ken.
Hello and Happy New Year to you, Dale.
Yeah, good to see you, bud. Hope you had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Sure did, but they're kind of glad they're out of the way now.
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, listen, Ken's role, everyone, just so everyone knows, Ken will be monitoring our viewer comments and questions. So if you are viewing this evening, either through Facebook or through YouTube, feel free to enter a question or a comment regarding whatever we're talking about this evening. So, and Ken will keep an eye out and let us know if anything interesting pops up. So, Ken, believe it or not, we are broadcast 226 this evening, and you have hit the 90 mark.
Well, that's hard to believe, but yeah, 90, we're getting close there to hitting that big 3-digit number there. So good.
Yes, it is. Yes. You'll just a few more and you'll be on that 100 mark. So, well, listen, we might as well address this again, Ken. That QR code up there in the corner of the screen, you want to give us a little brief explanation on that, if you would.
Sure. That little code right there will give you access to our subscription. I can't even talk in 2024. Subscription list. It will obviously at this point we've developed this subscription list to allow our viewers to subscribe so that we can send out information on upcoming broadcasts, some behind the scenes materials, other things that we are putting together. This is January, and we are ready to put that together so that we can start sending that out to people. So jump on the early train, put your smartphone up against that QR code and scan it, put in your email address, your name, and you'll be on the list. We'll be getting back to you sometime this month with what we've got planned for future broadcasts.
Yep, we're working on that. We've just about got it wrapped up. That's going to include a personal copy of the state newsletter.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and enhance that even more and more. So, thank you for subscribing, and please, we're looking for more and more subscribers. So, all right, thanks a lot, Ken. We'll touch on this a little bit later on, again, just to remind everyone. But for right now, we're going to jump right into our program for tonight, and this is the start in Indiana, at least the start of a new legislative session here in Indiana, and we'll get into some more details on this, but we thought this was a good time to bring on our state legislative liaison, Marty Wood, and we're going to spend the whole program this evening talking to Marty hopefully we can keep him under control. Sometimes he likes to expound quite a bit, but we will try and keep him under control. But we want to talk about what's coming up, what we're looking for. So without further ado, Ken, let's get Marty on here, and let me get the the ones that I want to talk about here, and we'll bring Marty on right now. Hello, Marty.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Marty Wood, our legislative liaison. How long you been in that position now, Marty?
Last 3 years.
3 years. 3 years. Okay. So, well, Marty, I know we've had you on before, and I don't recall how long ago it was, but maybe for the viewers this evening that are new to viewing COS Indiana Live, tell everyone your COS story briefly, just how you got involved in Convention of States, and actually it's quite an interesting story. So anyway, tell us your COS story, Marty.
Sure. Before I do that, Ken, I just want to say, Dale said that number 90 as if it was a personal attack on you. I don't think you look a day over 88.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. I'm right now. I'm feeling about 88. So,
well, my personal story. So interestingly enough, we're about 5 weeks or so away from what I have put in my perpetual calendar as my 15th anniversary of awareness, if you will, or an awakening. On February 19th of 2009, those of you that remember 2009, the Obama years and the financial crash that took place, I was working in Chicago and just down the street from the Chicago Board of Trade. And Rick Santelli got on and did his famous, we need another Tea Party speech. Because things had just gone nuts, and he was ready to throw the barrels of tea into Chicago Harbor, if you will, at the time. And it just struck me and several others, and out of that, the Tea Party was formed. And a few months later, I got involved in a local Tea Party in the Chicago area, where I was living and working at the time. And then I think probably 8 or 10 months after that, I ended up meeting a woman who at a Tea Party meeting who was talking about Convention of States. And I think it was a little bit longer than that, but in any case, that led me to the Convention of States. And she mentioned Article 5, and again, in my lack of knowledge, I remembered Article 5 from the standpoint of, 2/3 of Congress meets to propose amendments, and those amendments are then that are ratified by Congress are then sent to the states for ratification by the state, by 3/4 of the states. And in my ignorance at the time, I pulled out my pocket Constitution, and there's another part of the same sentence that never was taught to anybody. Never, I didn't remember it. I never heard of it. I started talking to everybody I met. Did you guys ever hear this? And the answer was no. And later on in my involvement in Convention of States, I ended up being the state coalitions director. And I went around the state of Indiana, educating people and doing slide presentations on Convention of States. And I had 3 slides. And the first slide was the first part of that sentence that talked about Congress's duty. And the second slide was the second part of the sentence that talked about the states being able to call a convention for purposes of proposing amendments. And the third slide showed the word "or" in highlight right in between, and showed everybody this was the same sentence. Why? And I did ask for a show of hands. How many people, heard about that? Well, everybody heard. Most hands went up on the first slide. No hands ever went up on the second slide. And there were gasps in the room when they saw the word "or" and understood that it was part of the same sentence. And I ended up meeting one gentleman who was about probably 8 or 10 years older than me that said he remembered that from a civics class one time.
Really?
So I figured out that somewhere in the 60s, right around the time I think that the Department of Education was formed,
Yeah.
they stopped teaching us what was really in the full extent of Article 5.
Yeah.
And I, started asking myself and others, why do you think that was? And, like a lot of things that we've come to find out these days, I think it's because they didn't want us to know what our rights really were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, as I've gotten involved in this organization, it's a great organization. I think the proposal is for Convention of States is the only lawful solution to this problem. We don't want anarchy. We want, people to meet. And as you two know, we've had a couple of simulations, Article 5 conventions simulated in Williamsburg, Virginia. And, we've shown that representatives who don't have a clue who they are, they just represent the 50 states. This last one, we had 49 states represented. I think Rhode Island had to bow out because somebody got ill at the last minute. But in both cases, people came together in a very short time, got together and put their heads together and proposed amendments that, make some sense and move the bubble.
Yeah.
And so it shows that it can be done, and it shows that it'll work. And I'm encouraged by the growth that we've had in this organization over a relatively short period of time. A lot of people think that, this isn't going fast enough, but, our founders didn't want this to be an easy thing. They knew that the Constitution, that it wasn't perfect, that it would change over time or need to be changed over time, but they didn't want it changed easily. And so,
well, we're going to get into this a little later on, but I know, Marty, from your story, you went on to be one of the earliest ones in the state to go out and talk about this issue, right?
Right.
And I know. I always considered you the pioneer that caught all the arrows, so many of the arrows early on. But
well, I just took over for Diane, who had been shot up pretty well.
Diane Gomez, our first state director.
First state director. She was wonderful. She is a wonderful person and did a lot of work to get this moving. So she took the state house on, and I took the rest of the state on.
Yeah. So you really got this ball rolling here in the state of Indiana. Well, tell us in your words, you're the state legislative liaison. What is that role? What do you do as a state legislative liaison for those that are not familiar with Convention of States?
Well, I've been in this role for about 3 years now, and I'm learning to pray a lot more.
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, I really try hard to do that. They need prayers, and I need prayers. So I appreciate any prayers anybody out there can give for me. But these are regular people, and we don't often look at some of the legislation that they propose that way, from that frame of mind. You wonder why the heck they're doing this. How does this apply to the state, as opposed to obviously a lot of things apply to very focused or special interest groups. Somebody's been calling them. And so that's kind of really our role, and my role is to try to build a coalition down there with other people in Convention of States, and show that we have a presence. We're watching them. We're concerned, and it's about education in a lot of ways, because and not too many people understood this at the time, but we passed our resolution for Article 5 back in 2016, and it's like, well, why are we still down there? Well, the idea is that we've given up all the states have given up a lot of authority to the federal government. They've given it up. They've let it be taken away from them. They sat around while it was taken away without understanding what their real power was as a state. And so now we're saying we want to get this back. We want the federal government's grown too large. We want to get it down to where it used to be, and we want that authority to come back. So, well, if the states have allowed us to do that, allowed all that to happen, what kind of position are they in to react if and when that power comes back to them? And so, that's the education process that we're talking about. Our petition addresses three things: term limits in Indiana. Our governor and our treasurer are the only two positions that are term limited. I'd love to see every elected position be term limited. And I used to say in my presentations around the state that I have nothing against politics as a profession, but it ought to be. If you think about it logically, it ought to be just like every other job. People get a job. There's very few people stay in the same job, for 30 years. And, they get promoted, they do a good job. There's incentives, to, make more money, whatever the case may be, better their family and position in life. And all this happens to some of these politicians, but they stay in the same job all the time. And, if you do a good job as a school board member, which is kind of entry 101, politics 101, run for city council. If you like politics, you do a good job, city council, run for mayor, keep moving up. And that doesn't allow the natural tendency for, special interests, let's say lobbyists, whatever, to get their claws into you. We see even in school boards where, they don't even bid contracts anymore. They got chips that they've made with, providers for paper and pencils and supplies. And so these contracts get to be, they don't, by their inaction, they automatically renew every couple of years.
Yeah.
And, then all of a sudden, you look and see who's contributing to, their little school board, political run, their campaign. Here's people that, are contractors or, have done work for the school board, and they're contributing. And this isn't right. This isn't what it was designed to be. And so now that you've got conflicts of interest occurring, we want to reduce the power and authority of the federal government. I mean, look what happened during COVID in Indiana, where the governor, through direction and powers that he gave to the health department and county departments and across the state, shut down and businesses. We had hundreds of restaurants that went out of business, some of them national chains, here in Indiana. And, kids were masked up. There's no constitutional right to that. Our freedoms were taken away. And again, it was because, our legislature and everybody sat back and let these powers be.
This is an area, this is a part of our resolution, that reining in the control and breadth of the federal government, that I'm telling you, it's pervasive in so many different areas. Right. So many different areas in our society that it's very easy to find, education, whatever the area might be. It's so easy to find where the government is involved, where the government doesn't need to be involved, and why.
Yeah.
So there's so much there. That's such a big part of our resolution. Of course, the other part of the resolution I'm sure you're going to get to is the fiscal responsibility. So
yeah, and that's an interesting one, and it's interesting from a couple of perspectives. We're all taxpayers in Indiana. If you sit down and look at your budget, everybody's got a budget. They have a job. Well, all of a sudden that process is lost on a lot of these people in the legislature when they're dealing with our money. It's no longer their money, even though they're a taxpayer just like us. It's no longer their money. It's our money. And they spend it like it's crazy. Now, we're one of a large number of states in the country that have balanced budget amendments. We've got a balanced budget amendment in our Indiana Constitution that requires us to stay within budget.
Right.
Yet, revenue has been very good over the last several years. People that have seen that most directly with like things like property tax going up like crazy because of assessments and the cost of housing coming in, and people bidding on housing. We've had a lot of growth in businesses coming to Indiana. You've seen these large box businesses that have taken up a lot of farm ground over the years, for warehousing and whatnot, and all that's brought in a lot of revenue for the state. Well, in lieu of giving it back to the taxpayers, or looking to give it back to the taxpayers, they've just found more ways to spend it.
More ways to spend, more services, right? More ways.
It again is going to some things like, why do we need to spend this? And it's happening at all levels of the government. Even at the local level, you see this happening because it's trickle up economics in a lot of ways. Where you've got the most control as a citizen is at your city council meeting, your town council, and yet you're losing a tremendous amount of say at those meetings because all these councilmen are tied in with the process. They've been there for a long time. They know all the local developers, they know all the local businessmen in the community, and they all know how to spend money, and it's our money. And so where does this merry-go-round stop? And if you sit down and start putting together, I did this one time, and I started putting together taxes, gas tax, property tax. I don't smoke, but cigarette tax. You start adding all these up, you're going to get into 30, 40 taxes that people pay. Entertainment tax, hotel tax. It starts to add up, and I advocate strongly. You guys have heard me say this. Take the word government and replace it with taxpayer. Every time you hear the word government, replace it with taxpayer, and then see how that feels.
Yeah,
good insert.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So I try to remind people to do that, and I try to remind our legislators to do that because, right now, especially as we've got a good portion of society, the millennials are retiring. Some of them have made a lot of money, but they're basically now on fixed incomes, living off their investments or off of Social Security. And, life isn't going to get, taxes go up. It doesn't do good for those, so you worked your whole life and, now you're in this position. And those who are still working, you see people, husband and wife working, sometimes 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. I'm a precinct committeeman, and I've got, people who own property as well as farms, family farms that have been in the family for generations. They can't afford to pay the property tax on their farm and their home.
Yeah.
And it's getting bad. And I just talked to our city council where I live, and I said, in this time of inflationary need and costs have gone up, everything else, these budgets that we're passing at the local level ought to be focusing on need and not want. And yet every single thing in our local budget was a want.
There's a big difference between a need and a want, isn't it?
Other than the utilities, that they have to pay for various buildings, and the salaries.
Yeah.
Every other thing was a want.
Okay, so we got our resolution is term limits, reining in the breadth and control of the federal government, and fiscal responsibility. So very briefly then, what's the difference between what we call a past state and a state still in play?
Oh, good question. The past states there's 19 of us, and maybe hopefully 20 pretty soon if Kansas can fix a little legal snafu that they've got there, that have passed the same resolution. So we need 34 in order to call a convention for Congress to call the Convention of States. The states in play are the rest of them. And so we're in good shape there. I think we passed through at least one house in every other state. It's just, we got to get both houses, the House and the Senate, in that state. There's a couple states that require the governor to sign out of a kind of a historical significance standpoint, but most states, all that's required is for the legislatures to pass the resolution.
Indiana passed this in what, 2016?
2016, correct?
Well, I think
and
we
so
were
we were the sixth state to pass.
Right.
And
okay.
So we were early, and we're very grateful for that, and we're watching that closely to make sure that our legislature remembers that and continues to see the benefit moving forward of this. With all that else is happening in the country, this is becoming more and more valuable all the time.
Tell us, Marty. We're on the verge of, as a matter of fact, I guess officially tomorrow the governor is going to open the 2024 legislative session.
Well, it opened today.
The
session opened today officially, and we heard there was something on the news a couple weeks ago about the governor addressing the legislature tomorrow. But unfortunately, I hope that turns out to be the case. I don't know what he was going to say or what because I understand later this week is the State of the State address, and it's in the evening. But we're not seeing anything on the calendar. We're not seeing anything. Those things change. It's a very dynamic process and fluid. And we did not see anything on the legislative calendar posted for this week for the governor to address the legislature. So I don't know if that fell by the wayside or something got miscued or what. But in any case, the governor will be addressing the State of the State later this week, I believe, in the evening. That typically sets forth his wants and not necessarily his needs.
Or we go wants and needs again.
Or the state's needs. So I would encourage everybody to listen to that. Try to understand those wants versus needs, and call your legislature or your legislative representatives in the House and the Senate and let them know how you feel about those wants and needs.
Because, I think that's really a key point. The difference between a want and a need.
Yeah.
I've heard that before, but I haven't heard it in a long time. I really like that point. That's good, Marty. That's good.
Yeah. And, they listen to people that call them and talk to them. And that's why, unfortunately, some of the legislation that gets passed is, the common citizen scratches their head and says, what the heck is this about? And the reason that's there is because somebody is talking to these guys.
Yeah.
And it's not you. And so we need more of you to call your representatives and, be very courteous to them. Pray before you make the phone call or write the email.
Praying, that's a good point too.
Pray before you hit the send button, because I'll tell you the one quote that I've started to really try to live by that has struck a personal note with me is John Quincy Adams. Duty is ours. The results belong to God. So all we can do is send the email, make the phone call, talk to them, be courteous, and pray that, God has an impact on them.
Yeah. Now, Marty, this is this is a short session, right?
Yes.
I know each they alternate short session, long session. Last year was a long session. So how long does this session actually last this year then?
Yeah, the short sessions are on the even years, and the long sessions are the odd number years.
Okay.
This session started today, the 8th of January, and they've already passed that they'll recess no later than the 14th of March.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, not a
lot of time.
Not too much time.
You got about 10 weeks roughly, okay. And they meet on Monday through Thursday. We're asking anybody that's got any availability. Get a hold of me, come to the State House. We're going to be down there a lot this session, like usual, and we're trying to get as much visibility for Convention of States in Indiana down at the State House. Opportunity to see and understand the process. It's not an overly complicated one, but a lot of funny things happen that make you scratch your head sometime. And it's important that we learn together how this works, and we're always learning. And we're anxious to help others to learn, but to understand the process, sit in on committee meetings, especially focus on bills that your representative has sponsored or authored, or is in a committee on. And you can look at the bills on the iga.in.gov website. Right now, there are about 170 bills posted, and it's still early. There will be another week or two of bills being posted before they have to be assigned to a committee. And then you'll see a number of them drop off the table, if you will. They shade them out in gray compared to the blue if they haven't made it through the process. And when I say haven't made it, sometimes what we're finding is that a lot of legislators want to show their constituent base, well, I really tried to do something about that. I proposed a bill on XYZ. And, word comes down from on high or from one of the, from the Senate president or the Speaker of the House that, no, that doesn't fit our agenda for this year. And so it dies. It never goes anywhere. And you'll see those in a few weeks start to just boom. There's be a bunch of them that get grayed out. Unfortunately, not enough of them. There's still going to be hundreds that will continue to be worked through the process on both sides of the aisle. And
I should have done this ahead of time, but have I got that address right?
Yes.
IGA.in.gov.
No com.
No com?
No .com. Just IGA.in.gov.
I've got that in the chat, by the way, iga.in.gov. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. But they've done a wonderful job with that site, actually, over the last few years. They've made numerous revisions to it. It's fairly easy to navigate. There's a ton of fascinating information on there. You can read your Indiana Constitution. You can read how the process works. You can see a map of the State House, and
there's a lot. I'm still learning how to navigate that. There's so much information there.
Yeah, there's tours you can sign up for, and anybody. I've always encouraged people. I've moved around in my occupation before I retired, and I always made it a point to go to whatever state I lived in. I went to the State House. They're usually fascinating buildings. There's a lot of history behind them.
We got a beautiful one. There's no doubt about that. We do.
Our State House is the third version of it, and it's a beautiful building.
Yeah. I want to be sure and get everything in here today. Are you looking? Is there any major legislation on your radar screen that you're kind of focusing on so far at this point?
Well, we're watching for a few things, and there's been a couple of instances of this, but we focus on what we call the F3s. Bills that impact our freedom, bills that impact federalism, which is, basically, is the government getting too big? Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing as the government, as opposed to doing, pursuing some special interest crazy thing? And fundamental rights. And you're going to see a lot of all three of those things. Probably the latter two, the fundamental rights and the federalism, are the ones that we look for. We're aligned with a couple of other groups, and we're trying to look for things that are impacting children. There's a good bill that's moving forward to put an age limit on.
I saw that one.
Pornography.
Yes.
And things in schools and on the internet, and going to require that. And recently in North Carolina legislature passed this bill, and several pornography sites completely shut down in the state of North Carolina as a result of it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And so,
what are the three? What are the three again?
Freedom, federalism, and fundamental rights.
Okay. And what do you mean by federalism? Quickly, what?
Well, federalism is really about the government, and what the Federalists it's a term that was after the Federalists, what they wanted to do with the government. But it's I kind of equate it to is the government doing what the government's supposed to be doing as representing the state of Indiana,
Okay.
or is it trying to pass some law that is really responding to some small group's needs, or wants, if you will.
Okay.
And we as citizens, we're all paying for this. So when we pay for a bill to be passed, a law to be passed by our legislature, it ought to be representing all of us to some extent. And where we don't see that, we should be raising our hands saying, wait a minute, how is this applying to me? Who are the constituents? I like to ask them, who are the constituents in your area? I asked the sponsor and the author of the bill, who are the constituents driving this? And many times they don't even know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's and they don't want to tell you because it's a lobby group, or it's a small special interest group. It might be Joe Smith down the street and a couple of friends that had him over for dinner and started squawking in their ear, and boom, there's a bill. And how does that apply to all of us? If we're all paying for it, it ought to apply in some good way for the benefit of the state and for all taxpayers.
Yeah.
And so when you go through this list, I really encourage people to, just sit down once a year, when this legislative session starts in the second or third week of the session, and you can go through these bills. Even reading the summaries take a little bit of time, but within a couple of days at the most, you could go through almost every bill and get a sense of what it's about. And because our bills in Indiana, we're one of like 41 states, I think it is, that requires a single subject bill. So other than appropriations, which tend to go on, and cover a lot of departments, and, they're pretty lengthy. And we did most of that last year. These bills the whole bill can be read for a period of time, and they're usually less than, 10 to 20 pages. And there's not very much on a given page. There's a lot of wide margins.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to read the whole bill. You can read the summary and get a pretty good sense of what this is about.
Yeah.
And if you see something that's confusing, then you go to the whole bill and you read it. But it's not a lot of rocket science, and it really brings forth a lot of questions, as a taxpayer and as a citizen. What the heck is going on here?
Well, Marty, let's talk about this topic. You've kind of hit on a lot of things here, and I know this has been brought up in other discussions I've been involved in. And 19 states have passed this resolution calling for a convention of states. With everything going on in our country now, for the past 3 years, why are we still at 19 states? Why do you think we are still at 19?
Well, this has been a source of a lot of frustration for a lot of people. I have to admit, there's been times I've been frustrated as well. But when you stop and think about this, and if you stop and look at why we are where we are, we've been on a 150-year journey to get to the point that we're at today. And there's been a whole lot of other times in our history that it's been as bad, if not worse, than it is today. We're still in the freest nation in the world, and it may not feel that way sometime, but, we've let a lot slip through our fingers. But our founding fathers created this Constitution and did one heck of a job in it. I mean, if you really sit there and study this and read it, which most of our legislators have not done, frankly.
That's true. That is so true.
Yeah, they have no idea what it is. But it's not a very long document to read. And, it took them months to come up with it. But the way they crafted this, and they yelled and fought with each other like crazy during the whole thing, okay? And they came up with this document. They knew that, there were only 13 states. They had bought more territory. They knew that expansion was going to continue. They wanted it to continue. They knew that they weren't perfect. And so they wanted this thing. They wanted to provide a couple options to amend it. But they also didn't want to make it easy. Okay. The Articles of Confederation would have really made it tough. which is why they steered away from that. They said the Articles of Confederation, which they were originally thought they would do to work around to get to the Constitution,
Right.
required 100% agreement. Well, they were 13 states and they didn't agree on anything.
Right.
So can you imagine what 50 states would be doing today?
Yeah.
So that was the principal reason they got away from it. And they ended up with 3/4 and 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of the states. So we're at 19, 2/3 is 34 states. We need to get the 34 to call a convention, for Congress to call a convention of states. At that time, they're instructed to name a place and time for the convention. And that's it. Then basically Congress is benched and the states take over, which is what the government was created. The states are supposed to be running the show. We, the people, are supposed to be running the show, and not the government.
Yeah.
And so the states step back in with delegates. Those delegates meet, propose amendments. 2/3 of the amendments that are passed at the convention move on to same process. 3/4 of the states at that point have to ratify. And it was not intended to be easy. It was intended to be a thoughtful process. So that people said, is this worthy of changing a sacred document like our Constitution? Because this will live with us in perpetuity, unless it's changed again. And we've had a lot of amendments proposed over the time in our history, but very few. We've had 27 amendments, I think it is, that have passed.
Right.
In that period of time. And, one of those was reversed. All right. The bill on prohibition was reversed.
Yeah.
And
I just think
modified. So
with what's going on in our country, it's just, of course, I'm biased on this, but it just seems to me like this alternative, holding a convention of states, is in fact looking more and more like a solution to what's going on in our country.
It is, and I think the frustrating part that remains, Dale, is that you see it every day on the news with what's going on in Washington. These are regular people that have been sent to Washington.
Right.
Our speaker, just got bounced out, and new speaker got in, was looking very hopeful. But he's got a lot of deals to cut. Everybody doesn't want to upset an apple cart. And frankly, the apple cart needs to be upset because it's not, there's a lot of rotten apples in the apple cart. You need to upset the apple cart to get rid of the rotten apples, and if for no other reason. And so, but people need the fortitude to do that. And they're lacking a lot of fortitude at the federal and the state level, and even at local levels in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to get to our last topic here, and that's, I want to talk about the Surge Day coming up on February 7th. So let's jump into that topic, and we got a little short video that we want to play here. Ken, are we getting any comments or questions that you want to get in?
Really, just I'll put up just the two last ones we got. People have been very just interested, I think, in absorbing all that Marty's putting out there, and I think there's some good information. I know one of our friendly volunteers here, Cheryl Schottmeyer, she's talking about the federal government only exists because the state said so. So we, the people, must be engaged and hold office holders to a higher standard.
Yeah.
I think one of those standards happens to, I think everybody who's running for a political office like that should read the Constitution. I mean, that should be a requirement.
Pretty basic thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Cheryl touched on something here in this question that is getting through. Okay. You are starting to see nationally and at states across the country, they know we're watching them. Okay. There are more and more people starting to get involved, starting to ask these questions, from the moms on, some of the stuff that's been going on in the school boards to, statewide issues. And so you're seeing a large rash. I mean, we've had 15 or 17 people in Indiana that have been legislators that have announced this is our last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've had it. Now they've been, a lot of them, some of them have been there too long to begin with. There's still others that haven't announced that have been there way too long, but we got to get good people in to replace them. And people don't want to be bothered with this, and it's a shame, because this is our government, and we need people to step up. It is about we the people, but we the people got to do it.
Yeah.
Anything
we
else?
have one more comment. Marty, you've earned a fan tonight, so I figured I'd throw this up for you. David Todd says, I like this guy.
All right.
David. Appreciate that.
No, David, don't send him any money. Don't send him any money. He can't take any money.
I don't take any bribes. I have no conflict of interest, believe me. I just go after the truth.
All right, let's start talking about our Surge Day coming up, and we got a little short video here, so let's take a look at that.
By the way, I no longer fit in that panda uniform.
Oh, really?
I want to know what they charged you for that computer you threw on the floor.
Some of those were scenes from Surge days in the past. But so let's talk about Surge Day, Marty. That's coming up February 7th. That's a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's one day. It's one day every legislative session that we try to get as many as of our 65,000 Convention of State supporters around the state to come down. Unfortunately, we don't get as many as we'd like to. But we're trying something new this year. We're trying to get groups of 15 to 20 every week at the State House to start walking the halls, talking to their representatives, sitting in on committees with Convention of States attire on to show that we're watching them. And, for those inclined, get up and testify on a bill, speak your mind. We're not doing it on behalf of Convention of States. We're just there to organize grassroots people, because that's what Convention of States is about. Our task was to pass the petition, and we did that. Right. So the bigger goal and emphasis of Convention of States is to build the largest grassroots army in the country, and that's what our mission is. And so, of activists, we want people to get involved in their government, and not crazy about it, but we want to get involved, and that's the only way you're going to learn is that getting involved at school boards, city council meetings, coming to the State House, seeing how the state works, going to county council meetings. It all works from the ground up, and it all happens up to the state level. We have no control over what happens in Washington. Don't even waste your time. Don't even get frustrated about it, because there's nothing you can do. You've got a local representative in the House, and you've got a couple of senators, one of which I won't even speak to, representing the state of Indiana. And when they go to Washington, they become part of the Washington system. They don't represent Indiana. It
seems to work that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, your congressman is the best shot you got at trying to, keep in touch. I let them all know what my 2 cents is. I send them an email. It's easy to do. I put in a phone call to their switchboard in DC. Doesn't cost anything but a few minutes, and you tell them, you talk to their aide, you never get a hold of them, but you just say, you tell Senator so-and-so or Representative so-and-so that, I don't want this to happen. And, you see what happens with it. But, they're there, you're here, that's all different. It's a lot different when the legislature's in session in Indiana and you go to your local meetings.
Yeah.
They're there and you're there. And so, and these people live in your neighborhood in a lot of cases. So, you can walk the dog down the street and, let the dog go to the bathroom on their lawn if you want to.
Well, I've said this many times when I first got involved in Convention of States. never had talked to any politician, and I discovered my state senator only just lives a few blocks from me here in Fort Wayne. So yes, you're so right. And you're kind of touching on another topic, that's self-governance. That's another thing that we encourage here so much in Convention of States. We didn't get a chance this evening to delve into this particularly, but it is a local thing. It is very.
It's really our real mission in Convention of States is to build a grassroots largest grassroots army of self-governing, activists. And
exactly.
We are nationally, we are about 5 million strong and growing. And that's the biggest thing to be impressed about as part of this organization. But we need a lot more. We've got 300 plus million people in this country now. And, that 5 million is a blip.
Yep. So once again, join us on February 7th. Just come on down to the Capitol. I think we're on the third floor, was it?
We're on the third floor, which is one floor above the main area. It's the same floor that the House and Senate chambers are on.
Okay.
And I would encourage anybody, if you're in the immediate Indianapolis area, make a trip to the State House. If you come down this way, stop through on vacation or on a trip, stop in. There are multiple tours of the State House that are free, that you and your family, the kids could take. It's great. Love to have the kids involved at a young age and often,
Definitely.
That we're doing all this for that generation. It's not for us.
That's why we do this. That's right. That's why we're doing this.
Exactly.
Well, Marty, Ken, you got anything else? I think we're our time's up here. It's time to wrap it up.
I think we've covered a lot in a short amount of time. Thank you, Marty. I think you've been really thorough, and I think people have enjoyed the fact that, it's you can get involved. I mean, I think that's what I found is a way. I kind of like Dale. I never picked up the phone and talked to my legislator before, and I find that this is a way that you can actually find that, hey, you know what? There's people that think exactly like I do, and you can get together and make your voice heard. And I think that's what intrigued me about getting involved, was the fact that
and it's remarkably easy, especially your House representative. They literally live in your neighborhood area.
They sure do.
Right.
And they're very accommodating. They'll meet you for coffee. You don't have to buy them coffee. They have strict rules against that, but they'll meet you for coffee. Always take another friend or two with you. And just talk to them like regular people. They're regular people, The senators are a little bit more standoffish and busier, but and their districts overlap a couple House districts or better. So it is a little bit more tough to get them, but make friends with your and talk person to person with them. Talk about families. Don't jump into stuff the first time. But try to meet up with them regularly. You want to get to know these people. They're regular.
Develop that relationship. Yep, develop that relationship.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, anyone listening, any viewer, if you're interested in Convention of States, want to know more about us, come down to the state capitol on February 7th, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
Anytime.
Anytime. Marty, thank you so much. I do want to mention. Where have I got it here? If anyone has a question or a comment about our broadcast this evening, send us an email to raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com, and we'll respond to you. If you want to talk further with Marty, send us an email and we'll pass your information on to Marty, and he'll get back to you. So raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Marty, thank you very much for your time this evening.
You bet. And everybody raise your voice.
There you go. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Marty.
Bye-bye.
All right, Ken. Well, it's time to wrap it up this evening.
Where did the hour go? I don't know.
I know. Well, I wanted to mention our next broadcast will be a week from tonight, January 15th. And we have a very, very interesting program that we're developing. we're going to be talking to the owners of they refer to it as a ministry called Fearless Features, and their latest documentary that they have recently released is called Dysphoria. And this is a very, very interesting topic. It has to do with transgenderism and all the things involved in that. So we're gonna spend hopefully the whole program talking to these two individuals, the husband and wife team. Fearless Features is the name of their ministry. So this topic fits right in with what Marty was talking about with curtailing the breath and control of the federal government. So that's what's coming up on the 15th. Our next roundtable, which you've heard us say every fourth Monday, we change the format, devote it to a roundtable panel discussion, and we're going to be talking about articles of impeachment. And obviously, impeachment seems to be a hot topic these days. So we're going to devote a roundtable to the articles of impeachment. And you know, there may be more articles than what you think are being discussed right now.
That's a very interesting topic. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I expect that we're going to have a very good discussion on that.
Great.
So also want to make mention that we now have another episode of our podcast, COS Indiana Live Voices. And that's episode number 10. Ken and I spent an hour talking with Michael Beckwith here in the state of Indiana. Michael's he's actually running for lieutenant governor, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, Micah will be running for lieutenant governor. That's correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got a very interesting background and brings some interesting history along with some very good, I'd say, sound principles that he adheres to. So,
he's currently a pastor here. Is he youth pastor or is he?
No, he's not a youth pastor. I think he was. You're going to catch me there with his actual.
I can't remember either.
Actual position, but he's a main pastor at one of the churches in Noblesville.
Noblesville. All right. Yep. All right. Okay. Anyway, very, very interesting time we spent with Micah. So that podcast can be found on Spotify.com. Just go to Spotify.com, search on COS Indiana Live Voices, and I think you'll find that podcast was very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a good chat with him.
Well, Ken, I think we're gonna wrap it up here this evening. We're actually going to wrap it up right on time. It kind of looks like.
Well, there's one for the books. Number 90 for me. One for the books.
One for the books. That's right. We're going to wrap it up here with a video from Mark Meckler that we like to play. It's called "I'll Quit Fighting: The Day I Quit Fighting." It's a kind of a it's the full blown audio video from that short one that we played during the introduction. So. Once that video is completed, then that'll be the end of our broadcast. So we're going to sign off right now. Ken, thanks for joining in tonight.
Pleasure to be here. Good to see you again, Dale. And we'll do it all again.
We'll do it all again next Monday evening. So good night, everyone. Have a good evening.
I struggle to empathize with people who would give up. It doesn't make sense to me. Sam Adams said, for those of you who prefer safety and security over liberty, over the animating fight for liberty, I hope that you Enjoy licking the hands that feed you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are our countrymen. Like, do you understand that your kids and you are sentencing your kids and your grandkids and your friends' kids and your neighbors' kids to a lifetime of slavery and servitude, literally, of fear, of living in the darkness? But never, ever, never, never, never give up. George Washington lost the majority of his battles that he fought in the American Revolution. If you read his writings, if you read the letters where he was writing to Congress asking for money and troops, he was saying, we're losing. I don't have the troops I need. I don't have the supplies I need. Did he quit? What about the guys on the beach at Normandy? Like, what did they do? Did they just quit? Oh, there's, a lot of guys are dying around me. It's really bad. It looks really dismal. Those cliffs are huge. Machine gun fire raining down on us. And it's too hard. We should just quit. Thank God those people didn't quit. If they had, where would we be? I get discouraged, for sure. And I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.